Hey mate, how's it going? We're suffering from a bit of Nations League fatigue here at the Football Dive podcast. It's been a weird couple of weeks, hasn't it? A lot of games in a short space of time at the end of a very busy season. And I think England are probably feeling exactly the same level of fatigue as well. And it shows with their latest three performances. They've all been a bit laboured, haven't they, really? But I think every team's kind of in the same boat. So we'll be discussing that, I think, first of all. And I'm joined by Dave. He's back today, freshly engaged as well. How's it feel, man? You doing good?
Yeah, great. Yeah, just enjoying the weather.
Good to see you back. Yeah, congratulations on your good news. I'm going to dampen that spirit a little bit and talk about the Nations League and England's recent games as well. So yeah, it was a bit of a slog really to watch, wasn't it? More than anything, they only scored one goal over the three games, and that was a Harry Kane penalty. So yeah, difficult to analyse, as I say, when the team looks so tired. It was a weird set of performances, really. Can we draw any kind of conclusions from it so far? And are you concerned for England so far with the World Cup so close?
Yeah, it was quite a laboured performance, set of performances, really. There's been moments where we've, carved out opportunities and looked quite promising in situations. But again, I don't really know. I don't know if it's too premature to say, but we have spoken about this in the past with Southgate, and we've said, we had the excuses of the midfield in obviously the World Cup, the last World Cup where we couldn't quite get past Croatia.
Yeah,
we came up a little bit short in obviously in the Euros just recently, and now I think it's going to be the biggest test for him really, because he's got this set of group of players that are just, the caliber of it is ridiculous.
Yeah,
probably our best squad for the last couple of decades. So it's really kind of sink or swim, I think, really, and it's going to be coming up to this World Cup. I think we've got 3 Nations League games. We've got one tomorrow, and then we've got to play Germany and Italy again, I think, in September.
Yeah, it's all been shoehorned into this part of the season because of the Qatar World Cup. So it's understandable the players feeling absolutely shattered, which is why I kind of asked the question, is this an indication of where we are? Do we read anything into it at all?
I think the thing is really, and in kind of even in the Euros, I think the best team we had to go through was Germany, who largely underwhelming for much of the tournament. Only just recently looking like they're kind of turning it around. So are we really kind of, I don't really know if we live up to the hype, and I think we are a little bit of a hype team. We know what we're like as a group of fans. England, we're as proud as anything, but I think we almost kind of believe our own hype at times and get a bit carried away. That's an understatement. But yeah. I think I just feel as though this could be his last tournament if we don't kind of go past a certain stage, or if we kind of just hitting a wall, whether he is able to take this set of players further. And he might feel that himself. He might feel deep down, Gareth Southgate, as proud as he is and as stubborn as we know managers are. You might feel that somebody who has a better coaching resume can come in and take this, England team and win something. Because
I think he's actually said words to that effect. He said, "I don't want to outstay my welcome." So once this tournament's out of the way, if he gets the feeling that he's not either wanted or he can't take the team further, I think he'll step away anyway, knowing Southgate.
That's a strange thing. That obviously, was it the FA? Didn't they give him a new deal? Which I felt as though that just feels like Man United to me, in offering Solskjaer a new deal, offering Jose Mourinho a new deal, and not backing him. I just think that's a little bit premature. I think the wise thing to do would have been to see how this tournament goes. And I don't, if it's Gareth Southgate, no disrespect to the guy, I can't see him jumping into a big club in club football, because he's not proven that he can do that. So it's not as though he's going to be, busting a gut to get out and join obviously a bigger club. If I think the FA, by all means, were fully in the right just to say, we'll see how we go in this next year, and then have talks on the back of that. But I just feel as though they've kind of dug themselves into a little bit of a hole, really.
I guess, we're talking about the future of Gareth Southgate, like we're in a really big hole at the moment, and obviously the World Cup hasn't even happened yet. But that's the kind of feeling around the camp, isn't it? When you've had 3 games in a row where you've not won and you've only scored that 1 goal. And there's been concerns about the amount of goals that England have scored lately that haven't come from Harry Kane or Raheem Sterling. I think obviously Kane himself has got like 50 international goals now. And the rest of the team combined had, I think, 49 for the squad, which is, it's not very prolific, is it?
I mean, you hear a lot of the players speak about kind of glowingly in terms of, the team spirit and how much they enjoy playing for England when they go away, and it's a breath of fresh air, but good vibes only take you so far.
That's the thing. There's shades of Solskjaer with Southgate, isn't there? Because he rode on good vibes for ages.
Yeah, a little bit. And it's kind of, whether we're getting where we are on this pathway now, I suppose, whether it's kind of approaching the litmus test and whether it is kind of at an end after this World Cup campaign. Who knows? We'll just have to see. But we haven't been really convincing in any of these games.
No, I think for me, Southgate looks just terrified of really messing up, and I think his formations and his players kind of show that. I think he always plays far too defensively for the setup and the players we've got, and he tends to have a front 3 or 4 players, and the rest are all fairly defensive. And he's even been playing like Bellingham and Rice in deep positions as well. I think just because he's worried about any kind of threat from the opposition, and England shouldn't be like that. We should just try and outscore everybody, surely.
The thing is, as well, I saw somebody speaking about it. If we're going to play this way, we're going to set up this way. Why have we not got somebody like Jose Mourinho in charge of the team? Because he knows how to win games and win in that style. True. And if he had that set of players, I honestly think he could do a good job with England. Personally, I don't. Obviously, he's in a job at Roma, but I just feel as though there's the capacity there in that team to play a lot more expansively than we are. Especially with some of the young players that are coming through. I mean, if you look at some of the players that are in the squad now that weren't at the World Cup a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, there's so many talented individuals, the likes of Phil Foden, Reece James. I thought Reece James played quite well against Italy. Was unlucky not to get an assist if it wasn't for that Sterling missed opportunity from about 4 minutes out. So there's a lot of potential, and it's just kind of about unlocking that now. And I'm not sure whether Southgate's capable of doing that.
Well, that begs the question, really. What does Southgate need to give him confidence to unleash more attacking players in a system that kind of services them as well? Because we've even got Reece James, like you say, Trent Alexander-Arnold, really attacking wing-backs, full-backs, The left-hand side's a bit of an issue because he keeps playing Trippier down there. And without Chilwell and Shaw, there's no obvious replacement for them, except maybe Saka. I think I'd probably have given him a chance as a left-back. But he seems intent on trying to get the midfield heavily stacked to be defensive rather than go forward. And we've got someone like Bellingham in the ranks now. I just wish you'd unleash him. I really do. I don't know why he persists with Phillips and Rice together anymore. We don't need to play the 2 of them. So he just needs to let the shackles off a little bit and, let these attacking players do whatever they need to do, because they do it for their clubs and they do it really well. They're very elite players. And I think Southgate isn't quite used to handling that still. It still feels like he's a little bit out of his depth. And I know that sounds like it's a bit over the top statement and we're so premature saying things like that. But we've seen 3 games in a row now where the approach has been so difficult to gauge. You don't know what his actual preference is, do you still? And I think Miles has said it a few times when he's been on the pod that England's identity is so difficult to kind of highlight. And the players that would start for England are really hard to predict at the minute, bar maybe 2 or 3. So that's the difference for me. When we watched Germany play against them, I think Germany looked like they were evolving. You could tell that Hansi Flick's kind of moved away from the Yogi Löw era, and he's put his identity on the team. Players like Havertz are having a team built around them. So they were looking, although a bit tired still, they looked like they had some kind of tactical direction to go in. Southgate, I'm not so convinced he has. And I think that's his limitation personally.
Yeah, and I don't think you were kind of over exaggerating over what you were saying about kind of he's obviously got his limitations, I feel, as a boss. And I honestly believe that if he was going out on the job tomorrow, would big clubs all over Europe be queuing up to bring him in? I don't think they would.
I think the FA are genuinely scared though about the alternative to Southgate, because I'm not even sure they'd be, I don't know, comfortable appointing a foreign coach at the moment. I think they'd rather go English. So who's the alternative? You've got Eddie Howe, who's just taken on a massive project. Graham Potter potentially, yeah. But that's still a risk for him. His reputation's on the up. And depending on what Brighton do in the transfer market this season, whether they actually do find a striker, he could have another average season in the Premier League. So his brand is up and down, isn't it? Really, depending on how Brighton do and where he ends up. So short of that, I'm not really sure how many English coaches there are ready to take up the reins of the national team. If there are any, they're kind of being in the same position as Southgate was, being fairly novice at the elite level. So that's a problem as well. I think the FA are genuinely scared about that. And that's why Southgate, they want to secure him for the next few years, at least until they figured out what they are going to do as a plan B if Southgate's the move.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but they're kind of scared of losing somebody who potentially taken us as far as we can go. But as a team, really, regardless of who's in charge of that England team, we should be competing with some of those big teams. We've shown that we can do it in the last couple of years. So I just don't know whether it almost looks like kind of when we get to those forward areas, we're relying on a bit of brilliance from the likes of Foden, Grealish, Harry Kane, and try and take advantage at set pieces. We've been really good, obviously, from set pieces over the last 2 or 3 years, and I just don't really know if I just think we're kind of overstating it a little bit by saying if the FA really think that there's nothing better out there than or anything that's attainable at the moment. I mean, it's always been a bit of a cloudy one with international appointments, manager wise.
Yeah,
it's managers coming in. I think there is a little bit of uncertainty of whether they're obviously attracted to that sort of proposition. So I don't believe that. I don't think the FA might think that. If they do think that, I think that's ridiculous. But they shouldn't be really fearing, his departure and thinking there's nothing better out there. Like we say, before Gareth Southgate came into the England job, what credentials did he have? He managed, obviously, Middlesbrough.
The under-21s as well, wasn't it? That was the big thing for him.
Yeah, not particularly well. The under-21s, obviously, where he didn't have a particularly very good record. There was a lot of scrutiny when he did get the job. So, I think there's plenty of reason to be optimistic if obviously if he does kind of go out the door after this tournament. We don't know. We're talking prematurely still. I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic.
So, yeah, we are being premature. That's the thing. But I think the mood is a little bit deflated at the minute. We expected a bit more, didn't we, from the last few games? And, England, Italy was meant to be revenge. never came close to being revenge, did it, really?
The thing is, obviously, the last Nations League we had, it was actually quite a bit of a breath of fresh air. But it's been a bit of a damp squid, really.
Well, that's my next question. I mean, it's the timing of it is just difficult because of the World Cup. But I mean, it's just devaluing the Nations League by some degree by shoving it in at the end of the season.
There's only so many, excuses you can use, and so many times you can use an excuse as fatigue. But look, we've just played 3 games and we've looked, below par in every single game. And if the players do enjoy playing for the national team as much as they say they do, I don't honestly look. They've come back from a break. They've been on holiday for a couple of weeks, so really they should be chomping at the bit to kind of put a marker down and really looking to cement a place in that England team, because there's a few areas in that team sheet that are still up for grabs, well and truly. So I don't believe in the fatigue notion. I just think it's there's a few players in there who've played a lot of games this season, but still, they should be really looking to kind of make a mark.
Which players do you think have made a mark for good or bad then? Because I mean, personally, I was really pleased to see Tomori start. Fikayo Tomori's had a really good season with Milan, so it's nice to see a dependable looking centre back as an option for Harry Maguire, because you never know what his form and confidence are going to be like. And also, Aaron Ramsdale had a pretty good game, made some really good saves, didn't he? So the two of those for me look positive. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there. I thought Ramsdale had a good game in the last game, and obviously Pickford didn't cover himself in glory with in the first game. So you could, I mean, that spot could be up for grabs, really. Especially depending on how the goalkeepers begin the new season. It could be. I mean, we're used to kind of looking at the previous season, obviously with tournaments, with international tournaments, but because we're going to be going into with a new season and having the international tournament in the middle of the season, it's going to be an interesting one. Really, it could be a case of some players making a stake for a claim at the very last minute, just based on the back of how well they're performing in at the beginning of the season. So Reece James, I thought he had another good game, looked quite solid at the back as well. He showed how he's such a good crosser of the ball. I think more often than not, when he does get his crosses in, I'd say he's probably on par with Trent, really, in terms of his crossing. And yeah, I don't know whether Mason Mount looks a little bit jaded. I think, potentially he probably could have been a player that could have done with a rest. Chelsea have played a lot of games this season. Let's not forget they've been to 2 finals. They got to the latter stages of the Champions League. I just thought maybe he could have been one that could have done with a rest potentially.
Yeah. I think he's yet to really perform brilliantly in an England shirt as well. So he did need, I don't know, a few good games for England, I think. And playing him on the back of the season he's had is probably a bit harsh on him. I
mean, looking at, we're more than happy to rest Kane and obviously give Tammy Abraham an opportunity. So I just don't really know why we can't kind of give Mount a bit of a rest and give someone else another opportunity. It's quite clear that we're not obsessed about winning the Nations League if we're not starting our best, forward in that Italy game. So I just think there's an opportunity for some of the younger players in there. I'd like to see more of Bellingham. I just feel like we've not seen enough of him. He's obviously on the back of having a really impressive season with Dortmund as well. So let's see what tomorrow brings, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the complete unknown at the moment with the Nations League, isn't it? And I just hope, like you say, a few players realise what they're playing for, because I know the World Cup isn't happening for a while yet, but there's not that many England opportunities coming up for them to make a claim to start, to get on the plane even. So I just want to see some real efforts to kind of show what they can bring to this England side, because so far everyone that's come in has looked a bit like lacking any direction at all. Like Jared Bowen did seem like the Jared Bowen we'd know from the season he's just had, and I thought the same with a couple of players as well, where you expected more of them because they had such a good season, and they just flattered to deceive. James Justin as well seemed to be completely out of position. It's a bit harsh on him. So it's a chance really to stake a claim, and I hope they see it that way, and I hope we see some standout performances.
The likes of Conor Gallagher. Been to see him get an opportunity on the back of his season that he's had.
I want to see more of Abraham as well, because Kane doesn't need to score any more goals to pad his stats out. So give Abraham a start up top. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, England games still coming thick and fast. It seems, and yeah, we'll assess them in the next pod as well as they come. But moving on to transfers as well, because that's the only real football we can talk about at the moment is who's coming and who's going from the biggest teams. So Erling Haaland confirmed at Manchester City, and that was no secret. But Darwin Nunez looks close to joining Liverpool as well. Who's got the better deal there, Dave? Because Haaland's a proven striker at this level. Nunez is more up and coming, isn't he? But both very young, very talented, both very highly sought after as well. Who are they? Big moves in the transfer market, big enough for you to stay at the top for them both?
Yeah, like you mentioned there, I think Nunez is a little bit of an unknown quantity in terms of whether he can do it at the very top. We've seen it. We've seen him put in a couple of decent performances in the Champions League. Obviously, he scored against Liverpool as well, and I think he had a disallowed goal against them. So, and we've seen that he's a good finisher. Both players are obviously great talents, but it's got to be Haaland who's takes obviously. I just feel like in terms of obviously his buyout clause as well, and apparently Liverpool are going to be paying up to 85 million, 60 million guaranteed apparently, and then up to 25 based on achievable clauses. So it's I don't know enough about Nunez really. I've seen little bits and bobs of him in Europe and a couple of games for Benfica in the league, but he looks like he's going to be. I just don't know, because Liverpool don't really play with that sort of striker in that sort of way at the moment.
So I can tell for Nunez is quite physical. He's quite good on the ball. His positional play doesn't seem to complement what Liverpool already have, if you see what I mean. So Klopp's seen enough of him. I think obviously he's seen him up close in the Champions League as well to make this kind of commitment. And I mean, for any club, that's a lot of money. But Liverpool don't really go and spend 60 million plus on a player, do they? That's quite a lot of money. So they must have some confidence in him. It's the unknown really for him, isn't it? Like with Haaland, you're almost guaranteed some goals. So I can see that definitely being a really difficult one for Premier League defences to deal with. But Nunez is a handful as well. Physically, he's quite a handful, isn't he? So that kind of dimension to his game will make him fit into the Premier League quite nicely, I think. But again, as you say, it's whether he'll fit into the Klopp's Liverpool of the future, because I can clearly see he's looking ahead now with Mane looking like he's going to Bayern Munich for some fee. We don't know what yet. 25 and 30 million bids so far have been rejected, but they're definitely planning for the future, which is it only looks positive for Liverpool at the moment, really, that they are making moves to replace these kind of mega stars that they're probably going to move on at some point in the next few years.
Yeah, I think it looks like Mane's probably going to be on his way out. Different sort of player again to Nunez. I think one thing Liverpool will have is if he does come in, which is looking like it, then they'll be able to play a little bit different, maybe a little bit more direct. Yeah. Because he likes to make those runs in behind, and we know Liverpool like a long ball. They like a diagonal ball, so they will be able to play a little bit more direct. We've seen them a couple of times in this season come up a little bit short in games, just because they seem to be a little bit out of ideas. They tend to be kind of swinging crosses in, and when you've got obviously forward players the likes of Jota, Mane, and Salah, they're obviously not the tallest of players, so we'll offer something a little bit different. It'll just be interesting to see how they approach games when they do play in, and just kind of how it affects the balance in their team. Because we've not really seen them have a sort of player when they tend to play Firmino, he tends to sort of play a little bit kind of almost like in a false nine, sort of where he will link obviously the two wide players. So it will be a different setup, I can imagine. So it would be interesting to see how that works. But yeah, like you mentioned there, Haaland is proven really. He certainly can do it on the international stage, as well as in the Champions League. So he's only going to score goals at Man City. Whether that'll be enough to win the Champions League, that's another thing. But suppose we'll see.
Well, Real Madrid look like they're making moves as well in the transfer market this summer for the good. They seem to replace in their midfield plays quite nicely. They already had Camavinga there, and they've just signed Aurelian Tchouameni as well, who looks like a great purchase, doesn't he? Their midfield is ready to go for the next 15 years, isn't it? Once the megastars they've got already there move on. So, yeah, maybe the Champions League's not a foregone conclusion for City after all, eh?
No. Yeah, that was a great signing for me. I thought there were rumours that he was close to sign for Liverpool at one point. I know there was uncertainty around Real Madrid's funds and whether they would be buying, big this summer. I think there's been a slight change of strategy from them. I think they thought they were going to get Mbappe, and if they did get Mbappe, I don't think they'd have gone for. They would have been able to sign Tchouameni and potentially, obviously, others they'll be looking on the lookout. So it might turn out to be, a blessing for them that Mbappe's coming. Because let's be honest, they've got some really talented forward players anyway, and they'll always be an attractive proposition to all players all over Europe want to play for Real Madrid. So, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how they shape up next year. Obviously, their midfield is aging.
Yeah.
Although Modric somehow looks as energetic as ever, at 37 years of age, he's had obviously an unbelievable campaign. So I'm sure he'll be out for a couple more years. But yeah, it's an interesting time, and so seeing some of the younger players come through in Europe. It's almost like a new generation now, really.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to see clubs actually future planning as well, instead of relying on huge megastar proven players coming in to slot into a team. So that leads me nicely on to Manchester United, actually, and their lack of business so far. They've not actually made any moves in the transfer market. I'm sure Erik ten Hag's biding his time and waiting for the right player, which is, fair enough. Still keep seeing Frenkie de Jong's name mentioned as a really strong possibility. And we've seen Antony linked as well. What are your thoughts on United's potential prospects so far, and how close to his chest do you think Erik ten Hag is keeping all his cards?
There's a lot of unknown, really, surrounding United because there's not really any sort of clarification on how much of a budget we have. There's a lot of messages coming out saying we've got 200 million. Some are saying 120 million. Some are saying obviously as little as 20 million, which is ridiculous. That's true. We've cleared off. We've cleared a lot off of the wage bill, as much as $1 million a week, I think, or something ridiculous, which is crazy. So that goes a long way. A lot of people, I think, are a little bit naive in thinking a lot of clubs pay all up front, a fee all up front, whereas the way things are done these days. A lot of forecasting involved in how much is going to be paid out each year. So a lot of deals these days get done in installments, which is obviously really common. So I think that's the way a lot of these transfers will be United will probably get done. Yeah, the likes of Antony, I think it'd be a good signing. We're kind of still lacking a little bit of a threat on that right hand side. Obviously, we've had Elanga there, and I think it's just been a little bit unfair on him that the onus has kind of really been placed on his shoulders to perform. And I think he played something like 25 plus games, which is ridiculous for such a young player coming through in his first season upon promotion to the first team and being expected to perform week in, week out. So Antony, being obviously a forward who plays off of the right with his who's left-footed as well, I think will be a good option if we can get him in.
Yeah.
Ajax, I think we've got a good relationship with them as well. So I just feel a bit bad if we were to take Timber and Antony off of them, if we're still looking at Timber. I think the international break is providing a little bit of a sort of like it's delaying probably some deals. I think that's the case with a lot of clubs at the minute. They're just waiting for the international break to finish where they can try to really advance with some transfer deals that are on. God knows what's going to happen with the De Jong situation.
Well, we need some midfielders, don't we? We've sold a lot of midfielders or released quite a lot, and we just need someone in the middle.
From what I've seen, it kind of looks like we're waiting for clarification on what the situation is at Barcelona and what their financial situation is, because I think they're kind of looking to kind of remedy in some manner, even though it seems kind of inconceivable that really they seem like in such a mess.
Well, they're going for Lewandowski, aren't they? And they're going to have to put a lot of finances into that. I think that's hinging on a lot of things.
That's what I mean. I don't understand really how they're gonna get out of it, because there's so many rumours coming out. Oh, they want Angel Di Maria, who, let's be honest, isn't going to be on cheap wages,
No.
as we know from previous experience. And yeah, the likes of Lewandowski probably be their best paid player at the club if he does sign on. So yeah, it seems unlikely that they won't have to sell some of their players. The like Young, they'll obviously want to hold on to some of their younger players, like Pedri and Gavi, because they're the heart and soul of Barcelona, really. Their identity.
Imagine seeing that, though. Imagine seeing Di Maria, Aubameyang obviously is already there, Lewandowski, all these players 30 plus coming into the club for huge money, and then releasing or getting rid of some really top young talent that's come through La Masia as well. As a fan, that must be horrendous, but that might not happen. You never know. But can I just get your thoughts on United as well, and the exits of Pogba, Lingard, Mata, Matic, Lee Grant even went. How the club handled that. It was pretty swift. It was pretty to the point, wasn't it? They weren't overly emotional goodbyes. How are you feeling as a fan about that?
I haven't really got any sort of feeling towards it. The only individual there you mentioned that I think is probably Juan Mata. I thought, you only hear good words about him as a person as well as a player, and I just kind of wish he would have got probably more of an opportunity this season. In the times that we did see him play, he showed he's kind of still head and shoulders technically above a lot of the players in our team. And I know that's probably not saying a lot, of saying how bad we were this season, but I would have liked to have seen him be given a few more minutes this season. I think there were rumours whether he was on about staying on, potentially going into coaching, which is kind of why at the end of the season he mentioned, I think, in an interview where he was going to see what Ten Hag obviously was, what his plans were. I just feel as though Ten Hag is probably wants to come in with a set system. He knows his coaches, he knows who he wants and plays. I just think it's probably a little bit of a risk bringing too many fresh faces into a coaching setup, when obviously you're in such a high pressure situation in terms of the club you're the manager of now. I wouldn't be surprised to see Mata back at United in some form in the future after he's finished playing. There's not been any word on or any rumours of that I've seen anyway of where he's going next. But yeah, for the rest of the bunch, I've no ill feeling to any of them at all. But I'm just happy, really, kind of that we're at the end of this road where kind of all the toxicity hopefully will be gone, and we won't be getting leak after leak every single week. The only other player who apparently might be looking to go is obviously Dean Henderson. We don't really know what's going on with him. He's linked with Newcastle with a move away. I feel like he just needs to move out, especially if he's not guaranteed as number one. He needs to play football. So I just feel like in the best interest in terms of the club and Dean Henderson, he should really be getting a move away.
Well, we'll see how Ten Hag prefers to set up with the goalkeeper, because he's not a sweeper keeper by any means, David De Gea, is he? So maybe he'll be a ruthless Pep Guardiola style culling like he did with Joe Hart and get the right goalkeeper in that suits the system. You never know. But that would be extremely harsh for a club legend like De Gea, wouldn't it?
I know what you're saying. I don't think De Gea does suit a Ten Hag team.
No,
personally. distribution wise, I just don't think he's good enough. But I just feel as though this bedding in process, there's bigger problems in that team, bigger problems that need solving.
Yeah,
Like you mentioned there, the midfield, big issue. We need to make sure that we're not biting off more than what we can chew. There's only so many things you can solve in one transfer window, and De Gea being in the team for another year or two isn't an issue for me.
Yeah, I agree. Either way, a lot of options for Erik ten Hag to consider. We knew that was the case. That's all for this week, Dave. There's not really much football between now and next Monday either when we record again. So I think it's England-Hungary on the Tuesday. And that's pretty much it, apart from the rest of the Nations League games taking place. So we'll see what transfer news comes our way in that short space of time. And hopefully some United movement happens. We'll have Miles back on the pod as well. If you want to subscribe to the channel, it'd be a massive help on YouTube because we are growing at a slow rate. It'd be nice to get some viewers. So if you like what you see here, please do hit subscribe. It really helps the channel going forward. Until next week, Dave, really appreciate your time. Thank you, mate. Congratulations again on the engagement, and speak to you soon. Cheers, mate.